Hi, welcome to Capitol Views. I'm Tim Bradner, and welcome today, Senator Tom Begich from Anchorage. Tom is the Senate Minority Leader and has long been active in education, particularly rural education. Welcome, Tom. I'm glad you could join us.
Well, thank you, Tim. Glad to be here.
Tom, there's a lot of, with the new federal infrastructure bill, a lot of interest in what it could bring for Alaska, and broadband is one of the big parts of the bill, particularly important to education, rural education. A lot of thinking now as to how this may play out and what decisions we have to make in Alaska on it. Your thoughts?
Well, Tim, and I've said this on the floor of the Senate numerous times and in a number of different op-eds and such, that we have truly underrepresented our rural communities when it comes to our broadband expansion. It's woefully underserved, and so our hope was with the broadband bill, maybe as much as $1 billion over the next 5 years could be devoted to expanding out the broadband network. And again, that's mostly federal money with a little bit of match. But one of the things to keep in mind is our own Commissioner of Education has identified to bring us fully up to speed, as it were, it could take as much as a couple $3 billion. So there's quite a gap here still that we have to fill. We've been fortunate. We've had some fiber optic cable laid up in the northwest area of the state by Quintillion in the past, and we've encouraged some of the satellite technology. But really, this money is necessary if we're going to even remotely bring our infrastructure in rural Alaska up into the 21st century. So I'm pleased to see it there. There are some concerns I have, but I'm pleased to see that we have the opportunity at least to match some of our urban areas and some of our lower 48 areas. You have to understand, chronically underserving rural Alaska school districts in particular means those kids fall further and further behind in the race to achieve, to have opportunity. And so it really does make a massive difference in the state of Alaska.
Tom, Senator, what are some of your concerns you mentioned?
Well, the primary concern is how we lay it out there. I mean, if this becomes a free-for-all where a number of maybe less scrupulous characters go out there to try to take advantage of the federal money and then do a haphazard job of putting together a broadband network, then we're in trouble. So I'm hoping that there'll be some oversight, whether from the Department of Education or through perhaps some kind of office of broadband, and maybe it's a public-private partnership, maybe working with some of our nonprofit partners. But what I really hope to see emerge here is a way that we can ensure that the broadband being provided and the resources being provided by the federal government are used most effectively. And I think that government has a role in helping that happen.
Senator, a lot of the federal broadband money is, and frankly, a lot of the federal infrastructure money important to rural Alaska is through tribal entities, and
That's right.
I guess it's not clear yet how all that's going to work. But particularly the broadband, do you have any sense as to how we can for example, what sort of is there a coordination mechanism in place for the state and tribal entities working together? There's
No,
already tribes working
that's my
on
point.
broadband.
That's my point, Tim, is that there isn't a coordination mechanism in place. And so I'm hoping that what we can do is sit down with some of our tribal leaders, AFN and other groups as well, and with the state government and see if we can coordinate the basically the influx of those resources. We want to also be sure that we're training people up to maintain these broadband resources as we develop them. So we're using local folks to actually maintain the networks we provide. But we don't have a coordinating effort right now, and I think that's what we desperately need to do here. And so my hope is that we will evolve over this session some mechanism that will allow us to know what's coming into the state, how to coordinate those resources so that we don't duplicate or we don't unnecessarily waste those resources. And that's my hope. So it's really a matter of whether or not we can, here in the legislative side, or even the governor, if the governor were to actually take the lead on that process. But if we actually have the will to do it, and then if we can work with our tribal partners, substantial amount of money, 3.2 billion in that federal bill directly to the state, another nearly $500 million, and possibly more coming into tribal entities, and then there's some discretionary money as well that we have to keep our eyes on. So a lot of moving parts here, but we have to coordinate those parts.
Do you see the what and how would the legislature would it work through the finance committees or would there be a special committee?
I would say there's two ways you could do it, either through a special committee of some kind, but also a piece of legislation, maybe establishing an office of broadband that would allow us to coordinate these efforts that are happening, not just the ones even from the federal government, but even, broadband isn't even regulated, you see, under our, we don't fully regulate broadband even under our RCA statute, so we have to keep that in mind too. We have to I would suggest that it would have to be some form of maybe an office, and then also secondary to that office, maybe a broader special committee, or perhaps the bailiwick of either the education or the bailiwick of the education or the finance committees.
Uh, and of course, once the hardware is in place, we still have the issues of delivering education, and this looks to an expansion of online education, to make it really effective. And so that goes to the Department of Education, whether they're equipped working with school districts to do that.
Well, there's elements in the uh, reading bill that would do that, that would help ensure a smooth transition. But there's already efforts underway under deed to ensure that we are able to do side by side with our in-person education, effective broadband education. All of them require people to be present. So my hope is that we will continue that coordination. Commissioner Johnson's done a very good job of doing that so far.
Yeah. So, Senator, it's often pointed out that Alaska has very low reading scores for children at a certain point. Do you think a lot of that has to do with the digital divide? Particularly, a lot of that must be rural students, and a
Well,
lot
it's a
of
combination. It's a combination. And what it really does come down to, digital divide notwithstanding, is if we don't have evidence-based pre-kindergarten coupled with really strong evidence-based reading and support, which is what the Moore lawsuit was about, support from our Department of Education to struggling schools, we will never get out of that gap. And that's rural and urban. Those schools that are struggling are everywhere. And so while it will make a difference to have enhanced broadband, without those other components, you'll never solve the reading gap.
so it's a whole package.
It's a whole package. And I'm
Uh,
looking forward to seeing it happen this year.
well, certainly seems to be some momentum. Well, Senator, thank you for joining us, and look forward to talking more about this and seeing you in Juneau.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'll see you down the road.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.